Hello viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, I'm going to talk about smartphone fast charging and charger scam that is going on. It's surprisingly subtle and surprisingly sinister. So let's dive deep into it. So what exactly is the problem here? Well, the problem is you must understand that phones are core part of our life. Heck, many people make their living based on their phone. So phone is no longer in an era of what we classify as luxury goods. It's compulsory. So we have reached that point. And what is the most limiting part in a phone? You may say SoC, display, none of that is a serious thing. Serious thing is the battery. Because here's the deal, what happens if the battery degrades too much? Well, it's no longer a mobile phone, it's a landline. So fundamentally, battery is the limiting factor. Everything around your smartphone is limited by how much power and capacity your battery has. So battery is the core critical part, and it's a wear item, meaning not only you have to do constant care to it, the primary reason why majority of people heat their phone is not because it's no longer working, it's because of the battery degradation. Replacement of the battery is a crucial part for it. So battery. Now, what has happened to the battery, so to say? Now, again, let that be clear, I'm interchangeably using battery and cell. Most phones only have cell. So cell sizes have grown exponentially. I'm old enough to remember where 300 milliamp hour, 400 milliamp hour, mega 500 milliamp hour batteries were big deal during the era of Nokia. Yes, I'm old. And that was very whoa. And it's like when early smartphone happened, like 2000 milliamp hours, like whoa. So we started from there, but here's real. We have gone bit as big as we can physically go, meaning my second last phone was Samsung M30, if I'm not mistaken, that was 5000 milliamp hour. And after that, I kind of went a bit crazy because again, Samsung went a bit crazy. So they went to 7000 milliamp hour. So yeah, batteries has went, although my recent regret is a bit lower, it's 5000. So you have to understand the battery sizes, as in we started from 3 watt hour capacity to right now you could easily be holding a phone that is more than 15 watt hour capacity. Take the milliamp hour, multiply by the 4 if you want. Like, it's a simplistic math, but it will get you close enough. So battery size has grown, meaning you need a lot of energy to charge it, and life gets fast paced, meaning we are no longer comfortable with the idea of like you plug it in, you forget about it. I coming from the old eras of cordless phone. It was always charging. We never had to worry about it. But in our day-to-day fast life, we do not want to wait for it to charge. So you want something that is almost like a capacitor where you instantly charge it. So we want this now. Because there is a demand, company can charge extra for it. So this is how companies are differentiating now, because we are reaching a point of what we call black slab, because all phones are a black slab. Heck, even the SoC could be from same brand. Like Snapdragon could be sold in almost all brands. So what is the differentiating factor? Well, for companies, power charging is a very good differentiating factor. Now this is where they are applying their secret weapon. The secret weapon known as obfuscation, meaning they are jumbling the details so much that you cannot find that detail. It's almost like how if you actually read the paper of insurance companies, you will never get insurance. It's like it flat out says nope. That's what it says. Like all the mumbo jumbo 15-page document, it simply says nope. So obfuscation is done, and that obfuscation is allowing the companies to exploit us, because we are not getting clear data, we are not acting according into our best interest. Basically, we are being tricked, so to say. So there is a genuine problem, and it affects everybody. It makes them richer, it makes us poorer. So fundamentally, it is something sinister. It's not illegal, it's very sinister. Now, before we dive deeper into it, we must understand some context that's going on. So context is, if you are born in 1990s, you must have gone through this era. Mobile phone became a thing in late 1990s. By 1998, people were like, okay, smartphone is very far away, but that time PDAs were created. So mobile phone were a thing. We realized mobile phone will be a thing. So from 2000 to 2005, boom happened. Bonkersly large amount of phone companies were created. Feature phones became a thing, and everybody was going cuckoo on it. And this happened. Every company had their own charging standard. And here's the ironic part. Inside a company, there was charging standard. So all these three pin jack that you see, yeah, they are from Nikon. Pardon me, Nikon, I'm saying now Nokia. Nokia had a very slim middle one, a fat one. You had to know which one it is. So yeah, that created an issue. And this was from Samsung. This was from Micro B port. This was from another Samsung. This was from Sony Ericsson. This is from another Samsung. This is from old iPhones. This is from Motorola. They used to directly use mini USB ports. So this created a hell of a mess. Now here's the deal. Phones, that time they actually had a swappable batteries. And again, in India, it got so bad because there were so many company competing. People just gave up on charging. We had simply had the idea, take off the cover, put out the cell, put a prong onto it, charge it. Like literally, we did not even bother with this. This was so bad. Now EU stepped in because again, because of this thing, they was creating way too much junkyard into their landfills. Like way too much e-waste was created. And be mindful, the charger had no other use other than just throwing away. You cannot just like, hey, let's say you bought from Sony Ericsson. You're like, okay, I have one charger in house. You may want to have another one. Let's say you bought another phone. Now you have another charger for your office. No, you have to throw away the Sony Ericsson one and use another one. Again, if you change from Sony Ericsson to iPhone, that the same thing will happen. So to solve this mess, e-waste pile that we were creating, common external power supply, yani common EPS was created, this puppy. So this standard was passed by European Commission, and this was more of like a willingly agreeing to each, and every company agreed to it, including Apple. And every company, be it Nokia, be it Sony Ericsson, be it Samsung, be it Motorola, I'm forgetting some other brands also, all of them willingly, which was ironic, they agreed that this has to go. All of them agreed on micro B. So that happened. Now here's the deal. Apple was the only company at that time, even though they signed it, they found a loophole. And again, it was not a law, it was more of a, you should do it. So they found a loophole. It's like, if you are giving an adapter, we can bypass it. That's why Apple chargers had this, instead of this being fixed, it was a USB-C. Because they claimed, hey, we are giving you a USB-C adapter, not C, USB-A adapter. What do you want? So this was the first attempt to bypass all this mess. First attempt. And it did work. And I'm genuinely shocked, like how many companies willingly simply gave up on BS and they're like, okay, let's just use micro B. And we had a surprisingly good experience with that. However, why did Apple pee on it? Well, Apple, because again, it's a very poor company. They barely make $2 trillion. I'm like, such a poor company. They wanted this sticker. So the idea is when everybody has to go to Apple, basically micro B, there is no royalty. You can make accessories, you can make the port, you can make the charger, you can make the, nobody has royalty over it. Apple was like, but what if we have royalty? What if we had lightning? So they had made 5 meaning if you have to make cable for it, you have to pay Apple. If you have to make, and be mindful, this is early on, this time China is not that big of a deal. So that time, even if China tried to flood market with knockoffs, they were getting stopped at the customs department. So USA, like, they got it. Europe, they got it. The Apple was like, we are making so much money from accessories, cables, chargers, everything from this made for iPhone sticker. So this sticker was making them few $1 million a year. I know, very poor company. They barely have few trillion. So why not just burn the one planet we have? So this is how they started. So you can realize there was a problem that we have to fix. Now here's the deal. Apple did this bad thing, but here's the deal. Android was not that much better. Android found a loophole again. The loophole was that, yes, we will all use USB. And yes, all of them willingly, the moment USB Association came up with USB-C standard, which is ironic that Apple is the one that made it. You're like, wait, what? Yeah, Apple actually paid their engineering time into USB Association to finalize USB-C because they wanted it to be ready for their new MacBook series launch up. So they actually paid time, money, effort went from Apple to USB Association to make USB-C. And that's why they never shut up about how awesome USB-C is in their launch event for MacBooks. And that's why they don't use it, because they want a sticker. So yeah, it's convoluted. Now companies, all Android company found a loophole is that batteries are getting bigger. People want a quick charge. So what if we had custom standards on that? Now, in the early days, it was not that bad. So it was like, hey, you are charging at 5 watts to 10 watts. That was like bare minimum. 5 watts was like bare minimum, 5 to 10 watts of charging. And everybody was fine. But the moment you wanted to go above that, fast charging was introduced. This time companies were like, hey, this is our jam. So every company made their own proprietary standard. And we went back to this exact same thing. Only difference was it looked same, meaning your USB-C looked same as every other USB-C. But if you are in Wukud apartment or you are in Warp Charger apartment, you have to buy their bricks. So we basically ironically went the long way around and we came to the same point. Thankfully, because USB-C was a base standard that everybody was supporting, you would not get stranded if you had Android phone. At least it can charge from all other things. But I have noticed that in recent times, if you charge it from a not properly handshaken device, it may simply say too low charging or like check the cable, and like it just throws up an error. So basically we started in a very good direction and we went back to the same thing. So what Android did, they messed up the protocol layer. What Apple did, they messed up the physical layer. So this time a new missile was created to safeguard humanity from its own e-waste, and this time the missile name was Radio Equipment Directive 2022, and this missile had no BS. Basically, you fire this missile and you boom these companies. So Apple had to use it. Apple was like, no. It's like, no, you will suffer, because I rather have you suffer, a $2 trillion or $3 trillion company, than one freaking planet we have. And yes, that's how significant e-waste is. So no more this. So yes, they will lose their revenue. No more this. And which is ironic, they should not be screaming. They made it. They have tablets for it, and they have MacBooks for it. They have iPads for it. They're just like, but made for iPhone. It's like, that's why iPad logo was removed, because iPad, if you pay attention to the latest one, it had USB C before law was passed. So the missile was fired in 2022, and because again, you have to understand, any phone that you are seeing today must have been started at least a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. So government allowed buffer time. This is the buffer time. If you're watching this video in before December 2022, this is 2024, this is the buffer time. After December 2024, meaning 2025 January, no more BS, meaning all phones must have USB-C, including iPhones. All phone must support the protocol layer of power delivery. You can have anything on top of it, but you must support power delivery. Meaning, if I have a charger from A, I have a charger from B, both have 25 watt charging capacity, they should work with almost all brand. All. Let that be very clear. All. Now again, it may not go to exactly 25 watt. It may be like, hey, 22 watt, 23 watt, but it should work. Meaning fast charging should now work with all phones. You don't no longer have to deal with Apple, iPhone, or Android, Samsung, nothing. All of them must support by the end of 2024 power delivery. And this missile has an even bigger payload behind it. That payload will go boom in 2026. So around June 2026, all laptops and all devices that are below 250 or 240 watts must support power delivery. Meaning this cable should be able to take care of anything that is around 200 watts, including laptops. Yes, this exact cable. And yes, this is a 5 amp cable. So they basically passed a law, and because again, that extended power delivery, that PD 3.1, it's still under construction, meaning it's taking its sweet time, so to say. And how would they make sure that this tiny cable can dump that much power? Again, amps, everybody agreed that 5 amp is the highest as you can go. Meaning, if you have a basic cable, this is 3 amps cable. If you have a fancy cable, that is 5 amps cable. But what does fancy cable mean? Fancy cable simply means there is an IC in the tip. It could be on this tip or this tip, but generally there is an IC, which we call e-marker chip, that does the handshake, the protocol handshake, and tells the charger and mobile phone, I good, me got this. You can dump 5 amps. Now, they did not want to make it thicker because again, the copper cost is high. So 5 amp was decided planet-wide. It's like 5 amps. We should be happy with 5 amps. Now, what about voltage? Now, voltage has an upper limit. You do not want a voltage so high that if a child goes like this, that should not happen. They should not leave this motor realm, so to say. So 50 volt, basically under 50 volt was selected, around 48 volt was standardized. So this puppy should be able to dump 48 volts and 5 amps to give you that 240 watts of power. And you're like, wouldn't that require a lot of step down and all that? Yes, that was the reason given for this sort of mess. But as we realized, we have very efficient step down converters, very efficient, like 98% kind of efficient. And some synchronous designs are like almost touching, almost. They are measured above 99%, like 99.5. No, this design 99.6. We are reaching that kind of point. And of course, they're a bit behind in terms of actual deployment, but be mindful, in 2-3 years, nobody would even care. And again, the grand total savings is so significant that's like, yeah, we will sacrifice that little bit. So 5 amps, 48 volts. Now be mindful, normal cable like this 5 amp cable can only go to 24 volts because again, that power delivery extended requires higher marker chip, meaning that marker chip will be upgraded. So it can tell the charger is like, bro, I can actually take more than 24 volts. Otherwise, it will downscale to 24 volts. Now be mindful, most laptop chargers are still at 24 volts. It will work without any issue. So this missiles were created to safeguard from this mess and the secondary mess that we have created, where it's like, charging standard and all that. So this time they were very clear on it. That's why Radio Equipment Directive everything that is in that kind of power, be it a tablet, be it a laptops, be it a game console, be it some equipment, all of it below 200 watt, that shall use USB-C. The end. There is no discussion, and that must support power delivery. So law has been passed. Thankfully, this sticker will disappear. A poor company will be extra poor. You know, maybe they will fall back to $1 trillion. Who knows? So this will happen, and we will no longer have to deal with that system. Now, that was the dream. That's why I said there is scam going on. That was the dream. Now you have to understand that. That's why I said, like, it's very sinister. You have to go really deep into it to understand it. So you have to understand charging curve. Now, if you know anything about lithium ion, you know there is chemistry into it. Now, generally there could be 10,000 chemistry into it, but there are 5 major category. So category is lithium, nickel, cobalt, generally used. Lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt, MNC batteries, and then you have lithium, manganese, sapphire, oxygen and graphite and all that. So basically you have 3 core chemistries. These are used the most, and then you have a bit more safer chemistry, which is lithium iron phosphate, and then you have even ultra safe battery chemistry, that is lithium titanate oxide. Now here's the battery is measured in few vectors. You cannot just say this better. That's not how it works. You can see they have a very complex graph. The idea is specific energy and specific power. Specific energy means how much capacity you have. Basically, does your mobile phone has 5,000 milliamp hour or 6,000 milliamp hour? That would be in specific energy. Now, specific power, how much oomph it can withstand. Now, do you need oomph for your mobile phone? Actually, yes, especially 5G. 5G has very spiky requirements. So 5G does require a bit of oomph, where you can take it oomph. And that also directly translates to your charging capacity, how much oomph you can take in charging. So now be mindful, all this chemistry falls under lithium ion chemistry, and some things are kind of universal. Lead acid battery could barely do 1C. 1C simply means take the full capacity, voltage multiplied by amp hour, that gives you the watt hour. That much watt you give it to 1 hour, that's 1C. And if it goes from 0 to 100%, that is 1C. 1C was not achievable in lead acid battery. That's why lead acid battery is like very, we do not like to use it. But mobile phones, 1 hour charging, you can actually achieve 1C charging, and we generally want it to be 0.8C. So it takes a bit longer than 1 hour, so it elongates the lifespan. Again, those are also another thing, how long the battery lasts, lifespan. And safety, again, do you want it to catch fire and all that. Performance, how much cycling it can handle in terms of environment. And cost, again, everybody would want lithium titanate. This is one of the best chemistry. It's just that even if you can manage a big ass phone that is like, looks like 20,000 milliamp hour, barely has 5,000 milliamp hour, but it will have everything else. Like it can handle very cold temperature, very hot temperature, will never catch on fire, and can charge at 3C. So 1C is 1 hour. Take the watt hour, basically take the milliamp multiplied by 4, simplistic math, and that gives you the basically 1C rating of it. 2C, 30 minutes charging. 3C, 15-minute charging. Yes, it goes exponentially. So you understand, that's why all the battery, no matter what phone you use, especially with iPhone and Samsung, you're like, fast charging, 1 hour remaining to 100%. You do anything else, 1 hour remaining to charge. Yeah, because chemistry, fundamentally, lithium chemistry itself is limited to 1C. Unless you go to lithium titanate oxide, those things can handle 3C without degradation of lifespan. Meaning you can force basically a bit more oomph into nickel, manganese, cobalt, MNC batteries, NMC batteries, but they do sacrifice in terms of longevity, meaning how many cycles it can do before degradation, or like too much degradation. That's not that good. So fast charging, the faster you increase the C, basically you're like, hey, 1C, what if I do 2C, what if I do 3C? The faster you do, smaller proportion becomes. Meaning, same thing happened with electric cars, and thankfully, because electric cars are big and expensive, more than enough people did investigation on it. So idea is, Elon Musk comes to the stage, like all the Samsung employees and all that. It comes to the stage, it's like, my electric car can now take 250 kilowatt of charging. It's like, whoa. Now people who know batteries, they're like, no. Why no? Because again, if your battery is less than 100 kilowatt hour, you are saying you're going to charge it at 2.5C. Yeah, that's not happening. So what actually happened? So people again, they went there and measured it with power meters, and you notice this curve happened. So you go, your battery is completely depleted. It's done. It's not going to move. You start charging it. It slowly ramps up the power. It does not dump to 40 kilowatt, 250 kilowatt. It will not. It will fry the battery. So it takes time. It circulates things, lets things warm up, let electrolytes flow, so to say. It reaches a point, and then around at 10%, it now unlocks the door. It's like, boom. Now it dumps 250 kilowatt. Now like, that's problem solved. Now you have 250 kilowatt. If you can see the graph, the life falls. The moment you cross 30% state of charge, it drops purposefully, meaning it now slowly walks to 100% state of charge, and the total charge from 0 to 100 is still 1 hour. That's Tesla. And be mindful, that's true of every brand. So in this, like, because again, it's a popular brand, so a lot of people did research on it. And again, same applies on all car brands. That like, if they have higher charging system, it requires the battery to be very depleted. Be mindful, you may be like, hey, what if my battery is like charged to 50%? Will it take 250 kilowatts? No. It needs to be depleted. Only then it can take that much oomph without frying. Oh, and there is another aspect. You must have heard this data set that you can force as much C as you want from 0 to 80%. That's partially true. Cars can do that simply because if you pay attention, there is giant cooling system. And let there be, there's a cooling system. It's not a fan. It's not just like, okay, water running, they're dumping heat into the, overheat into the ambient. No, they have chillers. All of the car batteries generally have chillers. So they actually cool the battery. Only then you can sustain this kind of power. And you're like, wait a minute, my mobile phone does not have a chiller. And yeah, vapor chamber and all that. Vapor chamber just dissipates the heat. It does not cools it. So that's the issue. That's why electric cars do not have like 0 to 100% in 50 minutes. It will be like 0 to 50, 100, it will take 1 hour, no matter what you do. Now, of course, 0, like it's completely depleted, you can absorb a lot of charge, especially in cold weather, you can absorb a lot of charge for, let's say 20 to 30%. Nothing more than that. That's the whole point. That's true with almost all cars, like be it Fiat 500, BMW i3, Honda E, what others, Bugatti, whatever have you. So that's the reality of it. Unless you have cooling on the batteries, you cannot go that like 0 to 80%, like full C charging, like 15-minute charging, you cannot. And if you force it, battery will survive. It's just that lifespan would be compromised, meaning instead of lasting 3 years, the battery will be like, I can barely hold on in after 1 year. So that's why faster the charging, the proportional becomes smaller, meaning how much space you can dump with that kind of energy. And meanwhile, this is a battery which is huge and has giant liquid chiller to handle the temperature. Your mobile phone is like, no bro, no. So, and unless you know the C rating, you cannot calculate it. But this is the easiest way. Take the milliamp hour, multiply by 4, that gives you the watt, and divide by that with the charger watt rating. So that gives you the C. So if it says 4C, yeah, no. If a battery has to be completely discharged, then it connects it. And be mindful, the handshake would be there. That's how we get tricked into it. The handshake would be there. It's like, oh, super fast charging, whoop charging, ultra charging. The handshake would be there. And it will show like, hey, I charged the handshake. And then you'll think it's going to charge. But again, it will always say 1 hour. But here's the deal, depending on the temperature. And how can companies achieve it? Well, they can put it in chambers that Linus Tech Tips had. The chamber could be minus 18 degrees Celsius. The cell temperature will, after you're dumping that kind of heat, it reaches to 25 degrees Celsius. Then they will claim at 25 degrees Celsius, condition applied cell temperature, you can charge it at 100 watt. You will never achieve that temperature in India, nor alone in Europe, unless you are in Antarctica. So fundamentally, this sort of lack of understanding from people and lack of this sort of transparent data where it's like, yeah, we claim 120 watts. I'm not joking. This phone, I'm not happy with it, but I was so close to buying Motorola and that puppy was claiming 100 watt of charger and the battery is barely 5000 milliamp hour. I'm like, no lithium chemistry allows you to do that unless it's lithium titanate, which I know it's not. Why? Because again, it's 5000 milliamp hour. It will be barely 2000. So that's the whole point. And again, we have learned this lesson through e-vehicles. Without the charge curve, we are flying blind. Companies can claim whatever they want to claim and you will buy it and you will not get the experience that you are expecting. Because meanwhile, temperature is unknown. You do not know what is the state of charge requirement for it. They may be like, hey, if the battery is above 30%, do not actually expect it to fast charge. It's like, it will give the handshake. It's like, hey, me good, handshake done. But I won't actually take high power charges, like, hey, above 30% I won't. And be mindful, I'm very optimistic in it. I think the most smartphone from Samsung and iPhone, they generally only fast charge for very short duration, like 0 to 5%, 5 to 15, done. And higher the wattage, the more likely it is that that's all they are doing. So what about this obfuscation? Now, obfuscation is that companies are using reviewers' laziness. Most reviewers are not going that deep into it. And again, I'm not a mobile reviewer channel, and I used to think that India has a very good crop of them. But unfortunately, I've also noticed that they did not go deep into it. And again, I also went deep into it because I just bought this. And I was like, hey, it says 45 watt charger. And be mindful, this is my first phone that claims that high. My F62 that had big ass battery, it was only 20 watts. So I was like, okay, I have a power meter. I plug the power meter. I'm like, it does the handshake. The logo is there that is charging. It goes to 5 amps. Again, that's why the 5 amp cable was given. So that means it's going there. It does not stay there. The voltage is 9 volt, but it never stays at 5 amps. It barely stays there. Like, then it was like 4 amps, 3 amps, 2.5 amps. I'm like, what the hell? So majority of the time, this puppy is charging at 18, not even 18. Most of the time, it drops even that. Now you may be like, okay, this may be a cheap phone. My brother has Samsung S23 Ultra. Same thing. If battery was completely depleted, it took 40 watts of charging, and then it's like, nope. Now here's the handshake was there. If you open that, it will show, and again, it always shows 1 hour charging time. So it was there, but because we had a power delivery analyzer, we were like, the voltage is there, amps are not. Mobile, again, I could easily understand it. The cell temperature would be very low to achieve that kind of system. So that's how that laziness and our short attention span is basically allowing company to sell us e-waste. Meaning, what's the point of you buying 100 watt mobile charger? It's like, and be mindful, because it's 100 watt for mobile, and I'll explain that further. It's like, it's not that useful for mobile phones, laptops, even though it should be power delivery. It's not a power delivery adapter. It supports rudimentary power delivery, but it's not power delivery. For example, this is a what for Motorola is there. Now imagine you have a laptop. Many laptops are there that only requires 15 volt. Many are there, but they require 15 volts at 5 amps. That's why this cable, this Motorola adapter that is 100 watt, it will not work, because at 15 volt it only goes to 3 amps, meaning 45 watt charger, meaning unless you have very light, thin and light, it will not work. And at 20 volt it goes to 6 amps. Again, it's exceeding power delivery, and that's by design. So you cannot get the same experience from a power delivery adapter. So you have to buy, like, let's say you bought the phone. Nowadays chargers do not come in the box. You bought the phone, you're like, okay, let me charge up from my power delivery adapter. It will be like, it will be frustrating. What will most people do? They're like, okay, I'll just buy a Motorola charger brick. Exactly where we went from. Like, why? And again, this is from Samsung. This is what my brother has, 45 watt travel charger. Again, original, first hand and all that. So this puppy has like 5 volt, 3 amps. Again, that's why 3 amps is always there. All charger cables are rated 3 amps. So 5 volt 3 amps, that gives you 15 watt, 9 volt 3 amps, that gives you 27 watt, 15 volt 3 amp, that gives you 45 watt, 20 volt 2.25 amps gives you 45 watt. So they are always staying under that 3 amp rating, even though you could have devices that require, like especially tablets, 15 volts and 5 amps. They're like, nope. It could do that, but they're like, nope, bare minimum. And for their own proprietary, of course, that's why they are giving you 5 amp charging cable. They will check the handshake, and then they're like, okay, now we give you 5 amp. This will again do the proprietary cable check. Be mindful, 5 amp cable will not work with this 100 watt system. Now you have to buy Motorola cable, because the e-chip that is in there, it's only rated for 5 amps. So you have to buy a special proprietary e-cable also, because again, there are some Xiaomi phones that has 10 amps. What the hell? Why the hell? And then you're like, okay, they say like, you know, we have waste heat and all that. We crossed that threshold, man. We crossed that in 2015. We crossed it. So that's the whole point. That's obfuscation. It's like, how many people would pay attention to the fact that, hey, is it exceeding 5 amps when it's actually charging on its own protocol? If it is exceeding, that fundamentally means it's no longer supporting native, proper, healthy use of power delivery. Now be mindful, it's still better than the old system where it's like, okay, I'm not gonna charge, because be mindful, if you are charging at like 9 volt 3 amps, still 27 watt charging. Most phone batteries is 27 watt hour, under 27 watt hour. So it will still give you 1C charging capacity. 15 volt 3 amp, that's 45 watt. That's like, I do not know any phone other than one phone made by Energizer that had like 20,000 milliamp hour that may be charged with that, but you get the point. Now that 20 volt 6 amps is like, hey, that's proprietary. Like another proprietary trick, what Samsung does is like their proprietary stuff that they have. They take 9 volts. Now you see, 9 volt is a not proprietary, is there in power delivery also. Yeah, they ask 5 amps out of it. You're not supposed to ask 5 amps at a 9 volt. You're supposed to ask at 15 volts. It's like that trick. So they're like, hey, you have to use PPS, precision power supply. If you use that, then you can auto adjust the volume. So you see, they are like sliding that information right below. Like how many people look at the iPhone charger and it's like, okay, it requires 5 volt 3 amps, that's good. At 9 volt, it's not 3 amps, it's 2.2 amps. Unless you have this sort of device, you're not gonna analyze this. Like the handshake, all you're gonna say is like a handshake animation and done. But what's actually happening without that actual analysis, unless somebody read this and actually had a power, like, wait a minute, it's exceeding 5 amps. And unless people knew what power delivery means, power delivery does not exceed 5 amps, they're like, I have to buy a new cable now. It's like, no, you do not. The companies are deliberately designing things that way that you need to buy it. So All these companies basically, and they want to sell you ultra high speed charging. Like for example, in Xiaomi's case, they had a phone that had 2 cells connected in parallel, so it can take a lot of amps. And I'm like, here's the deal. So I have paid attention to the fact iPhone teardowns, the battery shape was L. Now, yes, it is battery, not a cell, because it had 2 cells. Now, here's the deal. Why companies want to give you 2 cells? If they give you one large cell, the degradation is slower. If they give you 2 smaller cells, same capacity, let's say I give you 5000 milliamp hour or 5 amp battery rather than 2.5 amp battery, 2.5 amp hour battery will charge faster, but it will not last long. Like 3 years from now, basically from when you started this experiment, 5000 milliamp hour will be far healthier compared to that 2.5. That's the whole point. That's why company wants to give you a battery that is like, hey, it's ultra charges in 5 minutes because it dies in 5 months. They want to give it. It's called planned obsolescence. And unless you study all these things, you will not even know that that trick is happening. So all these companies they are doing is like they're supporting PD, but they are still running on proprietary systems. Like, and exceeding 5 amps, I'm like, no. At least I'm happy that Samsung is not exceeding 5. They're tricking it, but they're not exceeding 5 amps. So the cables you buy will not, you do not need to have proprietary cables. So, and again, in Motorola, Xiaomi, anything that exceeds 5 amps, you require proprietary cable and their own proprietary cable. So Motorola will not work with Xiaomi because again, the e-marker chip will not be the same. We went exactly round and round, came back to exactly the same point. So there is no point in fast charging adapters at this point in time. Again, imagine it this way, like you bought a very expensive charger, and again, these chargers are expensive, and I do not blame the charger makers. It's like Anker, I do not blame them. It's like, hey, Samsung is doing their own stuff, Apple is doing their own stuff, Qualcomm is doing their own stuff, and I also have to support power delivery, so the law is complied with. All of them, again, it makes it expensive, unnecessarily expensive. All they should have to worry about is like, hey, power delivery, go home. But they can't. So this basically we reached back to the same point of vendor locking, soft vendor locking. So, and unless you really dive deep into it, you will not even know that this is happening. This was very frustrating. Now, there is a request that I have with all of you guys. It's like, if you have a basically YouTube channel that is million plus, please invest into this sort of tools. And again, mobile phone is not my domain. I just noticed this. So invest into USB power tools. Now, this is the cheapest I could find. It is a very simple Type-C analyzer. Basically, it's a bigger variant of this one. Again, I bought this one because it was not available at that time. It came literally 2-3 months now. So that puppy can give you all the voltage, all the amps, and all the wattage. Nothing more than that. It will not study the e-marker chip and all that. It's just a transparent meter inline, and it does not give you the data into a software. If you want to analyze based on that state of charge, you have to plug it in, have a time-lapse camera or a normal camera recording for 1 hour 30 minutes. Generally, that's how long all batteries will take, 1 hour 30 minutes from zero, and that's it. You can jot it down, basically how much wattage was there. And when they change the voltage handshake, or most likely they will not change the voltage handshake. So if it was charging at 9 volt, they will lock it at 9 volt, but the amps will keep fluctuating, and you can plot it against the battery percentage and wattage. Then you will get a lot of information. And this puppy is PD 3.1, meaning this can support that 48 volt and basically 240 watt system. So this is rated well scale wise. It is more than good enough for any laptops that's going to be in 2026. So this is a very good investment, very low price, and I really wished it had a data output, but I get it. For low price, this is a very easy tool that you can start. If you are willing to splurge a bit and like your channel is healthy, you are getting 100k views per video, splurge in something like this. Again, this is a bit outdated simply because again, it does not support PD 3.1 extended power edition. So it will only go to 24 volt. Now be mindful, 98% of laptop as of now will work with this. 100% of mobile phone will work with this. And the reason why this is expensive, it does have the ability to analyze the e-marker chip, meaning you can connect the cables and it will tell you not only that does it have e-marker chip, meaning can it do 3 amps or can it do 5 amps. Plus, it can also tell you USB 2.0 or USB 3.0. So for many people, it's like, that's priceless. Another aspect is this can has 2 variants. One has Bluetooth, another has Bluetooth plus USB. So you can connect a computer app and get all the power graph directly. So all you would need is a camera or any software that allows you to read battery percentage per second from the mobile phone. So you can plot it against it. That's like perfect tool for actual data logging. And then you have Daddy tool, which is very expensive in India. Again, not expensive abroad, but this KM003C, it's 20,000 in Amazon. Now be mindful, if you are in India, you want to buy this, you can risk it from eBay. but price is still not this cheap, but it's much cheaper than half of this price. And the benefit why you want this is like it has the USB output, meaning you get the full data plotting, and this supports the same range, meaning it can support 48 volt power delivery 3.1. So this is sorted for 2026 with data logging. Again, this does data logging but does not go to 48 volt. This has no data logging but does go to 48 volt. For most people, this is more than good enough. But again, for if you want to be like damn sure that you are investing a lot of money in the cables, this is like the final solution. And be mindful, given the price of chargers, I'm tempted to buy this, but again, I have no use for it. So again, if you are a YouTuber, please look into this sort of things. Without this information, we are flying blind. And another aspect, if you are a viewer and you have a favorite reviewer who does mobile phones specifically, please ask them politely to invest a bit into this. Like they can plot that graph out. And again, that's why I'm saying buy these two. This requires too much manual work, but this is like just put it, plug it out, plot the data, and you will know what's happening. And I'm pretty sure if you have long enough graph, basically 1 hour 30 minutes, you may not even need state of charge. You can just like plot some points where it's like, 15 minutes I took a screenshot, 30 minutes I took a screenshot, what was the charge state. So this sort of tool will allow to actually plot out what's happening. All phones are different, all phones are doing their own thing. And again, this can also analyze what protocol is being used. Is it precision power protocol? Is it normal standard power delivery? Is it their own proprietary BS? And again, we also need to know, does the phone support normal power delivery? So I cannot check basically Samsung phone with Samsung adapter. Samsung wants that, and we do not want that. We have to check it with other natural power deliveries, power systems. And again, unless you have this sort of tools, you cannot dive deep into it and analyze it. So other than this, we cannot achieve the like obfuscation barrier that is being created around the brands. We cannot push through it. We need that transparency. We need this sort of tools working on a big way where it's like, okay, that's what's going on. Only then we'll know the truth, because remember, battery is consumable. Unless you know why your batteries are dying, like how it's being treated, exactly what's happening, you will not know what's wrong. And again, if everything is nice, awesome. Now you have absolute like trust, but verify. If it's wrong, it's like, I see what happened. And again, then you also have a choice where it's like, hey, I shall not use the OnePlus charger because it puts too much amps on the battery and battery lifespan decreases. What if I charge normal power delivery? Yeah, instead of 45 watt dash charging, I get 25 watt. Again, the battery is only 25 watt hours, so it's still 1C, comfortably, nice and easy, no problem. So we need to know. So this is my request from all of you. Please bring out this sort of tools in all mobile phone reviews, especially if the mobile phone claims 100 watt fast charging. I'm like, no. Unless you're using some weird chemistry, no. So this was my presentation on basically the scammy things that are going on with mobile chargers and fast charging. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst a friend. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike. Press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.